Welcome everyone to Think Constructive. I'm Isha and today I will be talking about very specific and interesting topic of AI. That is natural language processing. This session is designed to cover natural language processing which will follow the syllabus of class 10th CBSE. So today I will be covering couple of topics of natural language processing, not the entire chapter because that is big enough. So I'll cover couple of topics today and remaining topics in my subsequent lectures. Okay. So I'll quickly show you what all I will be covering in today's session. So here is the session plan. So we'll start with the introduction, followed by objective of natural language processing, then examples and applications of natural language processing, followed by AI project life cycle for a very specific case study, cognitive behavioral therapy. In short, we generally call it as CBT also. And this is the particular scenario which is captured in the book itself. So as I have already told, I am targeting the particular chapter and syllabus of class 10th CBSE. But yes, everyone is welcome. Those who want to learn natural language processing right from the beginning. So we will be covering scenario, problem scoping, data acquisition, data exploration, modeling and evaluation. All right. So let us start with the introduction of natural language processing. So what do we understand by natural language processing? Generally, once you'll get a little comfortable, you'll be using the abbreviation very, very frequently. That is NLP. But what do we all of us understand from natural language processing or NLP? So as the name itself indicates, it is the processing of natural language. All right. And what do we understand from natural language? The language which we all speak or write. Right. That means a medium, a communication medium using which we can exchange our thoughts, right? Whatever we want to tell to someone else, whether by speaking or writing, that is called a natural language. The expression of ideas, the expression of thoughts. All right. But how will machine understand that? That is where the whole crux lies, right? NLP. That is where the NLP comes in. So the processing of natural language. The natural language is spoken or written by people or humans, right? And to process that natural language processing came in picture. And how will NLP does that processing? What does it do? It will extract a particular set of information from spoken or written words with the help of algorithms, right? Because machine, as we all understand by now, that machine totally works on the set of instructions. So the statements, the instructions which are given to the machine will be working according to that, right? So, but how will it understand our language? How will it understand? There should be some kind of set of a statement or algorithms or rules or some code has to be fed in the machine so that as soon as machine captures our language, it should be able to understand. And how are we trying to achieve that? We are trying to achieve that with the help of natural language processing. That is where we all call it NLP, natural language processing. All right. And in simple terms, we also call it another domain or branch of artificial intelligence. So it is no separate from artificial intelligence. NLP is not at all separate from AI. It is rather a subdomain or another branch you can call of an AI or artificial intelligence, right? So that is where this particular topic is covered under the subject artificial intelligence, which is we are targeting here, right? So we also call it as a subfield of linguistics. When we call linguistics, what do we understand? That means this language understand the semantics or the meaning, right? Or it is another field of computer science, information engineering, or AI, as we discussed, right? So it is not different or altogether new thing for computer science people, right? So it is another subfield or another part or another domain or branch of computer science, information engineering, or artificial intelligence, right? So that's what I hope you started to getting a kind of gist of NLP. Now in your book there is a game. It's a very interesting game developed by Google. All right. So here is a link which I have shown here in my slide. You can see, right? So this link you can try and explore what is this game. I'm sure you all will love it. It's a very interesting game. What I will do, I'll just quickly open this site and will show you the introduction video for this, right? And it's a very interesting game. It would need your microphone access. It's fine, you can allow that because it's a voice game only, right? So game I would want you guys to play and enjoy it, but I'll just quickly show you the about video. It's just 1 to 2 minutes video, and in this they have explained what this game is all about, right? So let us have this video here.
This is a voice experiment called Mystery Animal. Hey Google, let's play Mystery Animal.
Hey there, I'm the mystery animal.
It's a game, kind of like 20 questions, where the computer pretends to be an animal and you have to guess what it is.
Are you a mammal?
Do you know how to swim?
Do you have claws?
All right. So now what I would suggest, you can see this video later, but I hope you can understand now what this game is. Set of 20 questions you will be asking and Google will be guessing, and then Google will be asking and you will be guessing that particular animal. But the important point here to understand, and why I was actually showing you this, because see, you are talking to a machine, right? You're asking a question and machine is understanding that in your language and answering, or machine is asking the question in your language and you are answering. So both of you are talking in the natural language, not a machine binary language 0 or 1. Machine is talking to you in your language and understanding, right? So that's what a beautiful example of natural language processing. Okay, I believe all of you will try it and enjoy the game, right? So let us now move towards the next topic, which is what is the objective? Why at all we need NLP, right? What is the ultimate objective? It's displayed here: to read, decipher, understand, and make sense out of human language in a way that it is valuable. It's not like that, yeah, it is understanding, but it doesn't make any sense. Then it's all waste, right? So ultimate objective of NLP is to read, decode or decipher, understand and make sense out of human language in a manner that it makes a lot of sense, right? It should be valuable. That's all I wanted to say. So I hope objective, introduction, what all we understand from NLP is clear. So we will move towards now the examples of NLP. So where NLP is actually very useful, we will use NLP in our email spam filtering. You guys must be using any of the email account, Gmail, Rediff, Yahoo, Hotmail, anything, right? So what happens, all of the email accounts mostly are having the feature For now, I will take the example of Gmail. It is having a feature that as soon as any email arrives to your inbox, it does something and checks whether that email is a spam or not. And if it is a spam, it routes that email to your junk or a spam folder automatically. You're not sitting and doing that specifically, rather, Gmail is doing that for you. So, what is happening behind the scenes? There is some algorithm which is running and scanning your emails, and as soon as it receives any email, it will scan that and checks whether that is a normal fully fine email or it is a junk or spam. If it finds it's a spam email, it will filter it out and send to the junk folder. That is just one example of NLP. That means machine is understanding the written language, right? Written language which we all understand, or in simple terms, written English language it is understanding, not limited to English though. Okay. Now another example, all of you must be knowing about Amazon Alexa. So what does Alexa do? Whatever we talk to Alexa, it is able to respond to us. I'm not saying that it is, ready 100%, but yes, Alexa understands whatever we are talking to it and it answers us back. Same goes with Apple Siri, OK Google, or Google Voice Search. Google Voice Search, for example, it's an extremely common application. Even our elderly people uses it very efficiently. And instead of typing on the phones for any search, what happens? They just open Google Voice Search and say, even in their own language, not limited to English, they use Hindi, Kannada, or whatever language they are comfortable. And Google Voice Search is now so efficient that it is able to understand the language and process and show them the results. All right. So it is extremely useful and a wonderful example of NLP. Okay. So even at my home, I have seen multiple times my mother. She always uses Google Voice Search. She never types on the touch phone. Rather, she just press that Google Voice Search button and speaks whatever she wants to search. It's so comfortable for her, right? This is just one example. You people must be already using it, but in which domain does it go? Now, I hope all you can relate. All these things will fit into our NLP domain. Okay, there are some other applications of NLP. Now let us talk about some of the applications of natural language processing. So as you can see, first application we'll talk about is automatic summarization, right? So automatic summarization, as you can see, some examples I have already written as news summarization or headline generation. So that means what happens is, out of a big paragraph or a big textual data, automatically machine can pick up the keywords or the key points and create a summary. And it is an extremely useful feature, and that is another example of natural language processing, understanding the written data clearly. How one can generate the summary of anything? Until unless it will understand it. So same thing applies to machine. That means whatever textual data is written, the paragraph is written, machine is understanding that properly, and then only it is able to clearly fetch out the keyword or the key phrases and generate the summary. So it is very much useful in case of news or news summarization or headline generation. Or you must have noticed, when you write your Gmail, in the subject line, automatically it populates some of the key phrases or the keywords of your email. So generally what do we do when we write the email? In the subject line, we write the key part or the crux of our email, right? So that is the summary, right? Or the very critical or important idea or important thing of your email. So that gets generated automatically by the Gmail for you. So there also the NLP is working. In case of news summarization or headline generation, if companies have deployed this particular part of NLP, so their job will become very easy. They need to write the textual data for any news and their summary or the headline will automatically be generated. Right? Yeah. So second point is sentiment analysis. So for example, I have already written here, identify the opinions or surveys interpretation. So generally, where do we use these kind of surveys? Generally, what happens is companies runs the survey to understand whether customers like their products or services or not. For example, any car company, they will run survey whether how many users or how many people like their particular car models, or if there is a new model launch, what betterment they can do in that, how can they meet the customer expectation or can go above and beyond. So for understanding all those things, companies generally launches different opinion or survey programs wherein there can be, multiple choice kind of questions or on off kind of questions will be asked, right? Whether you like Hyundai car or not, yes or no. And further, if there is no, they will ask you to explain or to give the reasons. There is no compulsion, but generally what happens, they request you to write the reasons so that they can understand from that those reasons what is the reason of disliking their car or their car particular model, so that they can try to do some betterment, some changes and try to meet customers expectation. Earlier what used to happen, there used to be, physical hard copy forms were there and companies used to distribute it to people, by a variety of mechanisms, by different shops or those who are coming to their showrooms, or by distributing it from all the house to all the houses. So there were different mechanisms. But now what happens, they generally do these kind of surveys online, and once they have got sufficient amount of data, their machine learning algorithm or their natural language processing algorithm will execute on that and will tell them what exactly customers are looking for, right? So what happens is they interpret from whatever people have filled in. Again, another example of written language. So whatever people have filled in, machine interpret from them and will generate a kind of outcome or report for that. So that is where also NLP is very useful. Now another third part is text classification. So text classification, first example is email spam filtering. If you remember, just a couple of minutes ago, we had already discussed it, right? So in text classification, what happens? So we'll discuss email spam filtering example. I had already given you that Gmail example. What happens if there is any junk email arrives in your inbox? Gmail machine learning algorithms will filter them out, identify and send it to junk or spam folder. All right. Or another example is email classifications into various categories. So for example, there is a social category, there is a promotion category in Gmail. So what happens is automatically the Facebook, Twitter or LinkedIn, those kind of social emails will arrive into a particular category called social. Or if there is any promotional email coming to your inbox, let's say some company is sending you the email for promoting their products, right? So that will go into your promotion category email. All right. And the normal emails, which doesn't fall into social or promotion, will come to your primary email inbox. So this is just one example. There can be many more categories. But how again this classification is happening? Some algorithm is running behind the scenes, which is filtering out this kind of data and sending that data to that particular category. All right. Now there is another application which is virtual assistants. As we had already discussed, Amazon Alexa, Google Assistant, Google Voice Search, Apple Siri, or in case of Windows laptop, you will have Microsoft Cortana. Or these kind of applications are normally called virtual assistants. Assistants makes your life very, very easy. A simple question must be coming to your mind, how these assistants are able to understand. So one thing, as I told you, is algorithm running behind the scenes, but only, algorithm alone is not sufficient until unless it will have data. So all these applications, whatever NLP examples I have discussed with you, all these works on data. So the more data you will feed into the machine, the better or more accurate answers the machine will give you. So that means, for example, for these virtual assistants or email spam filtering, there should be a lot of data already fed in the machine, and against that particular data, machine must be verifying or finding answers of your questions and must be responding you back. All right. So that's about the applications of NLP. I hope you must have understood it. So if you have any questions, please ask those questions in the comment section. All right. So you can ask more queries there. I will try to answer at the earliest. Yeah. So here I will quickly show you the applications of NLP, which I was explaining you just now. So the first application, automatic summarization. So for the summarization technique, I had given you a Gmail new mail example. So let us see. I will just compose a new mail with some sample text, and you will notice in the subject line what happens, right? So I'm just pasting sample text here. Now I will go to the subject, because any mail, it is a good idea always to have subject. So I'll come here and see what happens. Can you read? So this subject line is already suggested or fulfilled by Gmail. You can always change it. There is no compulsion to have this as is, but this is just one small example of automatic summarization. So from my text, it has already taken some keyword and populated it here as a summary, right? So this is one example of automatic summarization. Now, the next, text classification. We were talking about email classification into various categories or email spam filtering. Okay. So here in Gmail, you can see social and promotions are already populated. And in promotion, you can see some Grammarly or some, promotional kind of emails are populated. In social, again, some workspace or some other mails are given. So I did not do this intentional mail transfer to these tabs. It is done automatically by Gmail. So that is called as automatic email categorization. And email spam filtering, although currently I don't have anything to show you in my spam, but here is a spam folder, and whenever any junk message or junk email arrives in my inbox, Gmail automatically transfer that spam message here, right? So this is just a small demonstration for that. Now let us start with AI project lifecycle. You must have already studied this topic in your previous chapters and in fact in class 9th also. But here in this particular chapter, this topic is taken for a particular scenario which is more closer to the NLP application, right? So here the topic what is taken is cognitive behavioral therapy. In short, we call it as CBT. So I'll be using this term CBT throughout. So first we will discuss the scenario, and then that will be followed by the other phases of the project life cycle. Okay, so what is the scenario here for CBT? Generally what happens is, the world is very competitive, right? We all know competition is everywhere, right from the schools to college to the professional life, everywhere there is a, everyone is doing better, but they want to do better than others. So a lot of competition is there. The result, sometimes what happens, people get panic or get very anxious, and in some cases it gets converted to depression. So in order to handle such issues, if someone is facing such kind of problem, so to handle those issues, what happens? A good idea is to talk to the medical practitioner or the psychiatrist, right? So I'll just come back to that point. Let us focus on this picture also. So now you can see here your thoughts. Okay. Then your thoughts are turning into your emotions and then your behavior. So all when it combines and taking to some very difficult or different thoughts, people gets very emotional. People get extremely emotional or very anxious. So when these kind of problems are happening, then there is a intersection for all these areas and taken to CBT, right? So then in that case, particular person would need such kind of therapy or this kind of therapy. So what happens in this therapy is, generally if someone is facing this kind of issue, the person should talk to medical practitioner or the psychiatrist, and what that psychiatrist will do, will give a talk therapy to the person. That means the doctor will talk to the person and will help him or her to vent out their thoughts and their emotions very freely in front of the doctor, and doctor will channelize your thoughts with the help of talk therapy. So that is generally called cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. And this is an extremely powerful therapy which really helps people who are suffering from depression or anxiety kind of issues, right? But what happens is, there is a kind of mental blockage also in our society. People generally avoid to go to doctor for such kind of issues. So then what is the solution? What is the solution for this? They need some place or someone to talk to so that they can just vent out or throw out their thoughts, right? Because sometimes what happens is, even that talking or the speaking, or if you get some medium to just tell what's going on in your mind, helps a lot. It's an extremely helpful thing, extremely helpful, powerful tool. So this is what our scenario is, right? So what we just now discussed, the scenario. So I'll just read this out because this is what I have explained to you just now. So what cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, it is a talking therapy that can help a person manage his or her problems by changing the way he or she thinks or behave, right? And then with the help of this therapy, therapists help people to overcome their stress and live a happy life, right? When person becomes stress free, they'll become automatically less anxious, or their anxiety, depression will be gone, and then they'll be happy, right? So that's the scenario we have in hand right now. Now, what next? Let us talk about the problem scoping. So, scenario, or in simple words, I would say problem. We all have understood by now what the problem is, right? So, now what is the next step in project life cycle? Problem scoping. So, problem we all have understood. Now, how do we scope it? The thing is, people do not want to consult psychiatrist. As I told you, there is a mental blockage. They just avoid going to the psychiatrist because they feel it doesn't look good. What others will think about, what others will think for themselves. So they keep on avoiding. So there is a big gap between the person or the patient and the doctor or the psychiatrist. So how to fill the gap? There is definitely a need to bridge this gap, to fill this gap somehow, so that person should somehow be very much convinced to talk to therapist or psychiatrist and should reach there, right? So this is what our problem scoping is. So these 2 points we have covered. People do not wish to consult the psychiatrist, and another point is there is a need to bridge the gap between a person who needs help and the psychiatrist. Right? This is what the problem scoping is. And then with this problem scoping, we have 4 W's associated to it. Right? So let us discuss the first W. What is that? I hope you remember. What is that? Who, right? So the 4 W's problem canvas, the first W is who. So in our case, who are the stakeholders? In our case, who are the stakeholder? The person or the people who are suffering from stress, right? And are the onset of depression. They are very stressful, they are very anxious, and they might reach to depression very soon, right? And what do we know about them? What is the second thing? What do we know about them? People who are going through stress are really reluctant to consult a psychiatrist for the reasons which I have already told you, right? Let us have a look at the next W. Next W is what? Who we covered? Now the next thing is what. So what is the problem? What is the problem as we discussed? People who need help are reluctant to consult a psychiatrist or a doctor or a therapist, and hence their life becomes very miserable, right? They live a difficult life. So this is what the problem is. And how do you know that it is a problem? How do we all know? Studies around mental stress and depression available in various authentic sources, right? There are many news, many articles, many places where these studies are already available. So that's how we know, by talking to a person or by looking at the person's behavior, that this is a problem which should be addressed, right? So with this, let us move to the next W. The next W is where. We have covered who, what. Now, what is the another W is where. Where the problem lies. Where the context or situation lies. Right? What is the context or situation in which the stakeholders really face the problem? So, when they are going through the stressful period of life, and what can be the reason for that stress is the next point, due to some bad experiences, probably some bad thing has happened in somebody's life or somebody's family, and they carry those kind of bad memories which keeps on raising their stress levels, right? So this is where the problem lies. As you must have already read this 4W canvas, so the last thing is, or the last W is why. People get a platform where they can talk and vent out their feelings anonymously, right? So what we are trying to do here, we are trying to provide some kind of channel, some kind of platform to the people where they can talk and vent out their feeling and no one knows who is talking. So it is done anonymously. So they are safe, their identity is hidden, right? So the problem of that mental blockage of the society, what others will think about the person, it's gone here, right? And then people get a medium. So this is the first thing we discussed, and then the next point is people get a medium that can interact with them and applies primitive, right? And then the next part of why is how would it improve their situation. So once it's we all know, right? Once whatever feelings are there in our mind, if we are able to vent it out, our stress becomes considerably less and very less, right? So that covers our first point. Sorry, not this one, this one, right? And then the next point of how is they would consider then going to psychiatrist whenever required. So that means one thing, we are trying to give them an anonymous platform where they'll just throw out their feelings or their thoughts and feel very relaxed and comfortable, right? So once they do this thing and they feel good, then slowly they might feel and they might consider that really it will be beneficial if they will go and talk to psychiatrist. So that covers our last point. And that covers our 4 W's of problem canvas. Who, what, where and why. So now after doing these 4 W's, we are reaching to problem scoping, last part, that is problem statement template. So after doing that 4W canvas, we are having these answers. So now this statement you must already be knowing because you have already studied. Now let us read this template. Our people undergoing stress who have a problem of not being able to share their feelings while they need help in venting out their emotions, where an ideal situation would provide them a platform to share their thoughts anonymously and suggest help whenever required, right? So this is building a complete problem scoping story for us. I'll read this thing again. Our people undergoing stress who have a problem of not being able to share their feelings while they need help in venting out their emotions, an ideal situation would provide them a platform to share their thoughts anonymously and suggest help whenever required. So that's how we build a complete problem statement template, a lot meaningful template for us, right? So this complete paragraph makes sense to us, right? So after doing this, where are we reaching in problem scoping? We are defining a goal. So what is the goal now? To create a chatbot which can interact with people, help them to vent out their feelings and take them through primitive CBT, right? So after doing the scenario or studying the scenario and doing the problem statement templating, we are able to understand and define the goal very clearly. We all understand what chatbot is. The chatbot is something or a machine with which we all can talk, can interact. So what are we trying to do here? We are trying to bridge this interaction gap between the person who is sick or who is facing problem and the therapist. And we want to bridge this gap anonymously. How do we do that? That means we should enable some machine to be able to interact with the people, to give them the kind of feeling that how much does it help when they talk about their feelings and emotions, and then they will understand the real need of that, and they should be able to go to therapist. So what do we do? How do we enable the machine? Or whenever we enable the machine which can interact with the people in general, this kind of scenario we call that as chatbot. So what are we trying to do? Or rather, how do we define the goal? That is where we said we'll create a chatbot which will interact with the people to help them to vent out their feelings and take them through primitive CBT. So this anonymous thing, or this machine or the chatbot, is giving them primitive CBT, right? So I hope goal is very clear now. So now let us move to the next part of the AI project life cycle, that is data acquisition, right? So as we discussed, our goal is to build a chatbot which can give or which can act as a primitive CBT. So how the chatbot functions? It works on the data, right? Because again, chatbot is a machine. So in order to enable the machine to understand our questions and respond us back, and definitely with good answers, machine needs data. So now the next question is, how do we collect the data, right? So there are multiple ways with the help of which data can be collected to be fed into machine. One way is through surveys, right? It can be online or offline surveys. So the polling, the opinions will be taken. So that will be one way to collect the data. Another way could be therapist sessions. So one who is building the chatbot or the team who is building the chatbot should start observing therapist sessions and start collecting key points from there and then feed those things into machine in the form of data, right? Then another mechanism could be data which is already available on the internet, right? So a lot of data is already available on the internet, and for such kind of scenarios like CBT scenario in our case, data will be available. So that can be another medium to collect the data. And then by taking interviews of psychiatrists, therapists who are already giving such sessions, by interviewing a psychiatrist, or also by taking interviews of the patients who are better now, or who feel well, or who have recovered from with the help of this therapy, right? So these can be important data acquisition technique. For this, there can be many more. Think about it and write it in the comment section, right? So let us move from here to the next life cycle technique, data exploration, right? So now by this time we have understand the scenario, reached to the goal, and data we have collected. Now the next step is to explore the data, right? That means the data can be the data whatever is collected by this time can be raw data, right? It is raw data rather. So a raw data, if I'll just fed that into the machine, it will be very, very confusing for the machine, right? Because from one statement there can be many interpretation, and the same confusion will go for the machine. So what is needed here? Data has to be cleansed and processed. So a clean processed data, that is our point number 1, should be fed into machine. How to do that? Those techniques we'll learn in the later part of this chapter, right? So in my subsequent session, I'll talk about those techniques, right? For now, we understand that the data should be cleaned and processed. And then the next part is the text. It's another method of saying the data should be clean and processed. The text should be normalized through various steps and is lowered to minimum vocabulary. I'll just give you one example. Okay, I'll give you one example. Let us take that example in the reference of our CBT scenario itself. Person A is feeling better after taking cognitive behavioral therapy from psychiatrist X. Right? So, in this statement, what needs to be done in order to normalize this text? Only minimum vocabulary should be picked in. Right? So, that can be feeling better. Right? But what we need to do, we need to just drop out all the grammatical or connector kind of words here. So the second point is text is normalized through various steps and lowered to minimum vocabulary. So all, kind of grammatical or connector kind of words should be dropped from the sentence and only key points should be taken. That's how the text should be normalized. We'll talk about this in the later part of this section. Again, that will come in my another video session. So keep following so that you are always updated. So just a suggestion, subscribe to the channel so that you are always updated with the new sessions or new videos, because I'll be building a series of sessions for CBSE Class 10th AI. So now the next topic is modeling. So by this time, data is collected and normalized, cleansed, processed, right? So now the data is ready to be fed into the machine or the NLP based AI model. Please remember this point very, very specifically, that in NLP, only pre-processed data is fed to the machine. What do I mean by pre-processed data? Is the data which is already normalized, processed and cleaned, not at all a raw data, right? So whatever data we have collected, that has to be processed, normalized properly, right? Like example I had given you, that from any sentence, any grammatical or connected word should be dropped out, shouldn't be considered, right? Only keywords should be taken and should be considered as a good data to be fed into NLP based AI model or to the machine, right? So then the normalized text is fed to the NLP based AI model. So that's what about the modeling is. And then once the data is fed into the AI model, that means my model is trained enough, right? Now the time to test that. So to test the model, to evaluate the model, what all we do? Testing is always important, right? I thought of something and build up a machine or any project, right? But until unless it is tested, its accuracy is not proven, right? So in order to check the accuracy, how relevant is my machine is, the model has to be evaluated, right? The model has to be evaluated. Now the next point is, as we discussed, accuracy of the model is generated on the basis of relevance of machine's answers. That means since we are developing a chatbot, machine will now be asked multiple questions And if machine is able to give relevant answers, model will be called accurate, right? Or how do we test the efficiency of the model? Efficiency of the model is evaluated by comparing chatbot or our machine answer with the actual answer, right? So we'll now be asking questions to the chatbot, and whatever answer chatbot is giving, we already have our actual answer list for those questions, right? That's how we compare and test. And then chatbot answer will be checked or compared against against those actual answers, right? So basis on that, efficiency of the model can be categorized into three parts. Number one, underfitting. Number two, perfect fit. And number three, overfitting. We'll talk in a while about all these three. But just food for thought for you. What should be underfitting here? Think about it. Okay, what should be perfect fit and then overfitting? I hope by this time you should be able to guess, right? Name itself indicates, isn't it? It, right? What is underfitting? Where machine's answers are very less accurate from the actual answers or less closer to the actual answer. Those models are called underfitting model. That means those needs improvement. Second is perfect fit. Name says, right? It is perfect. That means machines or my chatbot answers are very close to actual answers or exactly the actual answers. So those are called as perfect fit, right? So what do we understand by overfitting now? Overfitting is when machine is trying to cover all the data samples, even if those are out of the scope kind of stuffs. So that means it's going overboard. So that is called overfitting, and in this case also efficiency is also considered as less. So it will also be a less efficient model. Right. So here are the graphs. Efficiency evaluation graph. So first model. So blue line you can say is the model's answers. Green is the true functions. And dotted is the sample. Right. So can you guess what this model is? Or what is the efficiency of this model is? Yes, you're right. It is underfitting model. Right? Why? Because see this is the model answers and these are the true functions. So it's far from true functions. Right? Now the second is, it clearly shows, right, it is a perfect fit. So blue one is the model's answer, true function is green one, all are overlapping, see? That means almost exactly the same. So it is called perfect fit. And in case of overfitting, see, true function is still this green line, but blue is going like sometimes this, sometimes that. It's going too here and there. So trying to cover too much here. So when it is trying to cover too much, it becomes overfitting model and also considered to have the lower efficiency, right? So what should we try to achieve out of these three? How will we say our efficiency is good? When we reach here in the perfect fit. Okay. All right. So what we have understood from this evaluation? What happens is, after thorough evaluation, model is deployed in the form of app. That means once the model is evaluated properly and it is very near to accurate answers, right? Just now we have seen perfect fit. So once the model is under the perfect fit efficiency, the model will be deployed in the form of app for the use of users. And the person, in our case, in our scenario, the scenario, The people who are really needing CBT, needing help, they can download this chatbot and use that and get the primitive CBT. And then later on, once they really feel, benefited from this, they can decide to go ahead and talk to therapist and get the treatment done, right? So that's with this evaluation technique, that's all about AI project life cycle with the CBT scenario. All right. So here is a list of topics again, which we targeted to cover in this session. So what all we have covered? We have covered introduction of NLP, followed by objective, examples and applications of NLP. Then we discussed AI project lifecycle by taking CBT as a scenario, which is the part of your curriculum, right? So that is the topic which is given in your book, that is part of your syllabus. So we covered all 6 areas of AI project lifecycle specific to CBT again. So scenario, problem scoping, data acquisition, data exploration, modeling, and then evaluation, right? So all these things we have covered in this session. Thank you for watching the session. It will be really good if you will subscribe to the channel, because by this way you will be updated always with the upcoming new sessions. So in the next session, I plan to cover some more topics of NLP, targeting again to class 10th CBSE students, right? So subscribe and ring the bell so that you are always updated. Yeah. And if you like the session, hit a like button, leave your thoughts in the comment section, and suggest what next topic you want me to talk about. Okay. Thank you once again. Bye bye.